Welcome back to another episode of Finn vs. History. As ever, I'm here with Horatio Gould.
Oh, it's been a murder!
Today, there's been a murder. There's been several murders. Today, we're talking about Jack the Ripper, Victorian serial killer.
Yep.
We think.
Yeah, we don't know. What you mean? He could be from a different time?
No, I think he was Victorian. I think we can safely say that it happened.
He's still potentially on the loose. We don't know.
That's why we're doing this so early on in this podcast. Is this man is still out there? If he's Japanese,
yeah.
I mean, they live to 140, don't they?
It's true. His steady diet of
He's
raw
just
fish
there.
has kept him going.
Yeah, I mean, I tell you what. Actually, if they are still alive, it's probably.
I like how you used they pronouns.
Well, because it's a Japanese woman.
Yeah, right.
Because no one lives older than them.
Exactly. It probably is. I would be checking the blue zones for Jack the Ripper. You know the blue zones?
No.
Do you not know about blue zones? Blue zones, there's like 4 or 5 areas in the world that this guy's had written this book on where there's more people who live over 100 than anywhere else.
Oh,
right?
I thought you were going to talk about Nazi war criminals.
No.
Argentina.
That wasn't one I wanted.
Argentina, the Vatican, Austria.
So it's like Sardinia, Okinawa in Japan, someplace in like California where everyone lives over 100. So it's studying why do these people, and it's nearly always walking up a hill and having friends.
Yeah. Friends and olive oil, I thought.
Friends, olive oil, and like squash, eating lots of squash.
I'd say, listen, we're not going to. This could be a 3-parter.
Yes.
I'm not going to. I'm going to keep my pen dry.
Yes.
But
keep your panties dry.
I'm going to keep my pants dry. I'm going to try and keep my pants dry. Because it's an incredibly exciting time period. Finally, I feel like I'm on solid fucking ground in the Victorian era.
What was your relationship with Jack the Ripper before this episode?
Well, I didn't really know much about him. All I knew is that I didn't like people who liked him.
Yeah.
And the tour guides, I would see them and I'd sort of fantasize about killing them. Is that the point?
Maybe.
I reckon that's what happened to Jack the Ripper, actually. He saw a Jack the Ripper tour guide and went, I'm going to kill a lot of people because fuck these people. These are my fans. God. I can relate to that, actually.
People were so into it in such an intense way that I always overlooked it as a subject. When people are too into it, you're like, I can't be arsed.
Yeah.
It always felt a bit lame to be into. I didn't know how there could be that much there. He just seemed like a guy. His numbers weren't even that good.
No. I mean, it's peanuts compared to Mao, Hitler, Stalin, the real goats. The goats of the game. But
studying this for this episode, and I did go on a Jack the Ripper tour yesterday, and I've lived in the East End for like 5 years now. So
you're a suspect.
I am a suspect.
Yeah.
It's potentially me.
Yeah.
Hiding in plain sight. But I will concede that it is actually very interesting.
It's very interesting. Yeah. But I also would like to stress that the people that like this a lot and are commenting, I want nothing to do with.
Well, yeah. So, but what else is like that? Is that
people? It's steam.
Is it British NFL fans? Like NFL's interesting, but
bit like that. It's the steampunk goth music
on
thing.
The pipeline of Doctor Who.
Oh, get in the bin.
But it's sort of a vein of distinctly British autism. Would you say? I know there's a lot of Americans who like it, but it's in that vein of the jaunty sort of like mega fan. You know, like British nerds. There's like. What is it? It's Doctor Who. It's
Comic Book Guy from The Simpsons. Jack the Ripper, and they're the guy that's doing
Milady.
Yeah, it's all people who speak like that. I think can get in the bin.
Yeah, and I think in general I've overlooked the Victorian age as something interesting because I guess now it's one of the lamest things to be into aesthetically. Like wearing the top hat now, the steampunk thing.
The steampunk thing is,
but
lame,
that means that I have overlooked it often as actually a very interesting.
But
time
also,
period.
you are from the Victorian period. And this is what I love about when I was researching this. I finally, having spent episodes in the Middle Ages, in the ancient world, I finally feel at home in the Victorian.
The world makes sense.
It makes complete sense. It makes more sense then than it did now. Yeah. Any woman who is living with a man and they're not married, she's officially classed as a prostitute.
Yeah, a fallen woman.
It makes so much sense. I know where I stand.
Yeah.
How long have you been with your girlfriend?
I've been 5 years.
Do you live together?
Yes.
Are you married?
No.
She's a prostitute. It makes so much sense.
Yeah.
The world is in harmony.
Well, in many ways, we've overcomplicated things, don't you think? In the modern world?
I think there's 2 types of women. Married women and prostitutes.
It was a lot simpler. Why have we made it so complicated?
Who are these working mothers of 3?
What is it? Just simplify it.
I'm like Russell Crowe.
Married woman or whore.
I'm like Russell Crowe in that meme. I'm like,
fucking hell.
You've got 3 kids, but you work, but you're
streamline it.
Prostitute.
This is.
Look.
And then there was like there was the posh end of London where everyone wore top hats and it was rich, and then if you wanted a bit of fun, you'd go into a slum where everyone's poor, and you'd get
people there had top hats but with a little jaunty little flap.
Yeah. Well, there was a period where homeless people in the East End dressed better than billionaires now.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They were wearing, they're covered in filth, but they wore like waistcoats.
Neckerchiefs. They had handkerchiefs. Yeah. I grew up using a handkerchief.
Doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, but now that's kind of laughed at.
Well, yeah. Can you not bring your snotty rag out with you, please?
I quite like I feel like a snooker referee polishing a ball. Every time I need to blow my nose. I quite like it.
If you're only using it to polish your balls, then that
I must stress, that's what I was doing. I never need to blow my nose.
I think, because my granddad had a handkerchief, and I just think, if I need to blow my nose, often I'll have to blow my nose a lot. Right? I maybe blow, there's some days I think I've blown my nose 100 times.
Really?
Right? So a handkerchief, that poor fucker, it's going to be like one of Jack the Ripper's victims after I'm finished with it.
So
it's going to be like Mary Jane Shelley, just absolutely obliterated.
That's the other thing.
Right.
Is that all of us have grandparents who were raised by Victorian parents.
It's true.
And so
the lineage is there. And also we've lived in London for years now, and this depiction of London, it all makes sense.
But it's also, what's fascinating about this is that when I've chatted to women I know about this podcast, they've gone, I'm excited for you to do something that's not a war, because war's a very male interest. Yeah. And then they've suggested Jack the Ripper. I'm like, do you know what this was? This was the brutal slaying of five prostitutes.
This is it.
But it feels like it's a topic that crosses gender lines.
It does cross gender lines, but the female fixation with true crime is interesting compared to the male fixation with war crimes and genocide.
Yes. Yep.
That's the big gender split.
That is actually, those are the two genders. It's war crimes or true crime.
Yeah. I'm doing a bit about it on stage at the moment, but it is funny that's how it's split, and neither of us can take the high horse, right?
No.
You can judge your girlfriend, because there's always like people always joke about but your girlfriend getting to sleep, she can't go to sleep without listening to a woman getting cut up by men, and then you'll roll over and listen to
this systematic erasure of a race. Yeah.
It is true crime on a bigger scale. That's what we listen to.
It's war crimes.
Yeah. So bigger. Don't turn your nose up at women listen to true crime. It's just we do it on a bigger scale.
That is true, actually. That's true. But I'm fascinated.
Is Amanda into true crime?
She's more into like the your Love Islands, your Below Decks,
right.
True Boring. Is that what it's called? Truly Boring.
Yeah.
Reality.
This is
maths. She's big into maths.
What's good about this topic as well is it is sort of the beginning of so much stuff. Jack the Ripper.
It's the
first crime scene photos. The beginning of sensationalism in the news. The first true crime. The kind of first serial killer. So even though his numbers are poor, he's the first to ever do it. It's Stanley Matthews.
It's
like Stanley Matthews, the first person to do a step over.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh my God, he's like, burn him, burn him.
Witch. Yeah.
This is back when people are wearing construction boots to play football.
Yeah.
He is the first to do it.
Yes, and also it's this is the start of the long road to Jerry and Kate McCann.
Right. And it is a long road.
It's a long road. It's bumpy. Bumpy road.
Like the First Crusade was the long road to 9/11.
The First Crusade was the long road to 9/11. This is the long road to the Algarve in 2003.
Wait, listen, so what's the link? What are you saying?
I'm saying the kind of fascination with unsolved murders, which is a huge public interest, conspiracy theories. This starts here, really. This is the first case that at the time is basically a tabloid sensation.
Well, it's fascinating how, I should
also stress, Jerry McCann could be Jack the Ripper.
Everyone, Madeleine McCann.
Everyone is out there. Everyone is a suspect.
Yeah, Jack the Ripper could have taken Madeleine McCann.
Who knows? A Japanese woman could be behind all these crimes, and that's what we're going to delve into in this series.
But what's absolutely fascinating, and we'll get onto it properly, is
that's quite a big claim for this podcast. We may not.
But how, the fascination with Ripper has been there from the start and has never... The first Ripper tour in the East End happened after the second murder.
That's crazy.
So it was during the Ripper murders. I went on a Ripper tour yesterday. People have been doing that since the first or second murder.
It wasn't even a full tour.
It wasn't, No. But they were just looking around there. She died there. The blood's still there.
Yeah. And everyone's like, ooh.
Yeah.
This is what is also weird about this, is that this is the brutal killing of 5 prostitutes. which
5
again
women.
is contested, but
It is contested.
no, I'm using the language of the time. Okay, I'm not using today's language. These were the brutal murders.
Don't worry, this
of
is
5
just what I
prostitutes.
think personally.
Yeah. This is the brutal murder.
Take this with a pinch of salt. This is just what I believe personally. This is just concurrent with my set of
I'm
values.
paraphrasing with what they said, but it's also exactly what they said. This is the brutal murder of 5 prostitutes, 5 women, and now there is a man in a top hat, and I imagine a pending autism diagnosis, taking tourists around London. And I mean, you'll tell us about the tour, but I imagine it's quite sort of performative in kind of a lame magician way. Like it's spook.
Yeah, he was like a sweet musical theatre guy. He had a Wicked t-shirt on.
Right, okay.
So he used to work in the London Dungeon. He's in the kind of, which I guess there's that whole industry, the sort of like, I don't know, top hat industrial complex. I don't know what what is it?
Yeah, because who's buying top hats?
It's
now?
like, I don't know what there's that whole tourism around jaunty London, isn't there? Where you could, so he's popped from the London Dungeon to Jack the Ripper.
Yeah.
He worked at Madame Tussauds. Like, there's just, I don't know what that is, but there's that whole kind of industry.
But what's interesting is this is a serial killer. This is 5 dead bodies, and why is that fine? And yet, when I go and look around a concentration camp, there's not someone in a Nazi uniform going, "Come with me through the gate to see the oven." Like why is that fine? And
Well, do you know
what's the difference?
Yeah, I guess it's the scale, and I guess because we know who done it.
Right.
Like, if we didn't know who did it, if it was like a mystery who did the Holocaust,
I don't know who did it.
It's still debated.
It's still debated.
Still debated who killed 6,000 Jews.
Yeah. Paraphrasing, but
because if we didn't know who did it, maybe you would have jaunty people in Nazi uniforms.
Maybe that's
saying,
the only.
Well, here's some suspicions about it. Could be, could be Queen
the first
Victoria.
suspect, Adolf Hitler, who wrote an entire treatise on how to murder Jewish people. But I suppose is it just the fact that it's unsolved that makes it like almost romantic and cutesy?
Well, no, it's 5 people as opposed to 6 million, isn't it? That's
yeah.
But
What's that Stalin quote? One death is tragedy, any more is a statistic.
A statistic, yeah. But a tragedy is a better story than a statistic, is it not?
It is, yeah.
So he was probably a true crime fan.
Right. Okay, I got you. Yeah. So we should. I mean, what's also funny about the kind of cutesy nature of the tour is that I can't imagine a less cute place and time to live than the East End of London in the 1880s.
So a bit of context, I guess, is that at this point, the slum was at its peak, pretty much.
Let me just, for the thickos listening, this is Jack the Ripper murders happened in the autumn of 1888.
Right.
So for context, that is after the domestication of the pig. Pigs are in farms.
Yes.
They are tamed. There's no wild hogs running around.
There's few feral hogs in this country.
Very few feral hogs.
Yeah.
It is before, and I think this goes without saying, #MeToo. There is no way. I mean, you could brutally murder 5 prostitutes and then run a sort of cutesy walking tour nowadays.
Yeah, Harvey Weinstein, they wouldn't have batted an eyelid of him back then. He'd be a feminist back then.
Harvey Weinstein to them is a sort of a shit pound shop Jack the Ripper.
Well, no, to them, he's like a feminist campaigner.
Right, yeah.
Because of how well he treats
right.
women.
Yeah.
Back at that time, it's like, are you a Nancy boy? Why are you treating them so well?
So they would have heard of #MeToo and gone, oh, did Harvey Weinstein start that hashtag? And you'd be like, well, sort of, not directly. But yeah,
I mean, arguably he's done a lot for feminism, Harvey Weinstein, if you think about...
You could die on that hill, yeah? You could try and claim that.
The dominoes that he set off,
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the same way that the pilot of the first plane did quite a lot for infrastructure in Afghanistan.
Yeah. Why?
Because he starts 9/11, which then they bomb a lot of Afghanistan, which creates jobs. Bombing creates jobs. We must never forget that, because they have to rebuild.
Right.
There's a long road.
So is Afghanistan in a better position now because of 9/11?
I'd say the women are in a similar position.
Yeah, that's pretty consistent.
The roads are safer. I'll tell you that much. The roads are safer and the food's tastier.
Parking is brilliant.
You can park anywhere. Yeah. And everyone's within the lines. No one's parking 3 meters from the curb in Afghanistan.
So the East End of London.
East End of London.
Right. So obviously London is the centre of the world at this point. It's kind of the height of the British Empire.
Still is. Still the centre of the world.
It's the richest city in the world in many ways. It's by far the biggest city. It's this kind of heaving industrial city.
Biggest, best, we win.
Yes.
Yep.
But because I actually watched a film last night about Romania in the 1800s, so a similar time. And
Christ,
it's like,
the things you do for fun will learn, but never not amaze me.
Yeah, it's basically still the Middle Ages. It's the feudal system.
Yeah.
So there's not really a city quite like this. It's lurching into life. It's every year. Like, to be honest, one of the most interesting things I heard in the rest of history was saying that, because we think in general that time is moving quicker, or like things are getting invented at a quicker rate, right? You feel the last 5 years is maybe quicker than the 5 years before that. Yeah. And that's kind of the view, you know.
Accelerated reality.
Exactly. But if you think about it, maybe it's ebbs and flows, because you could argue that over the Industrial Revolution, that 100-year span, probably was more things changed than in the last 100 years. You could make an argument.
People go from being farmers to having a really terrible time in Birmingham.
Exactly.
Basically.
Yeah, but the amount of change that's happening, it's like, I feel that London's definitely not changing as much as it was then. Think about the 5-year periods that are happening.
Right.
Like, at this point, 5 years from now, it's constantly just growing and changing, you know?
Well, the East End, the one thing that's constant is that the East End is very smelly. The East End has will, I think, always be the smelliest part of London. Yeah. Now, I'm not saying that as a pejorative. Yeah. Nowadays, it smells very delicious.
Yeah. Great curries.
Spices, curries.
So it was quite a small area. It was in Whitechapel, a lot of this happening. 80,000 people crammed into the poorest slum in Europe as well. So this is like one of the shittest places to live in the world.
1880s East End. Yeah. That's where in the aftermath of the Industrial Revolution, they set up all genuinely the smelliest factories. Yeah. So tanning or tannery, which is making leather into, I don't know what you make leather jackets.
I don't know why you need to tan it.
Yeah, but anyway, it involves piss.
Right, yeah.
So
does it?
You have to piss on it, I think.
Do you know why the East is poorer than the West in London? Why the rich people live in the West of London?
I think it's because the East smelt so bad, and anyone with any kind of money would...
Sort of, but it's actually because the prevailing wind is East. So the smells of the City of London all drift towards the East.
Yes.
So the rich people would go Westminster and move that way.
And their farts would end up...
Exactly. So East, you're just downstream of all of the fucking stink of London.
Yeah. And that's why they put the factories there, because they were like, this already smells of farts. We might as well mingle the rich people's farts with all the smelly industry.
But because it was the Industrial Revolution, it's like modern... depravity. No one had really seen this kind of level of
smell. Human waste and industrial effluent due to the lack of proper sewage systems, with the most notorious stench being associated with the, quote, Great Stink of 1858, a period of extreme heat that caused the Thames to become incredibly foul-smelling due to the large amount of sewage dumped into it. The East End is also, at this point, the East India docks, the East End docks are functioning, and so it's where anyone arrives. Yeah. Any immigrants, they arrive. Immigrants, obviously poor. They they settle where they arrive. Is the kind of
because I was asking the tour guide why it's like the poorest slum in Europe and one of them in the world when it's one of the richest countries, and it's probably because a lot of people are going because they think they can get jobs there. Yeah, and because it's relative religious tolerance in the UK at this time. It's kind of like getting out of that.
Yeah, relative. It's quite a low bar, isn't it?
It's quite a low bar.
I mean, in Russia...
But the Jews are escaping pogroms.
Yeah.
There's like a lot of French Huguenots in the East End of London.
So French Huguenots are French Protestants. They're the only good French people. They come over to eat slightly less pastry and do about an hour more work in silk. They make silk.
They make silk, and in Spitalfields, the French Huguenot houses are now going for about 2 million to 4 million.
Yeah, beautiful houses.
They were beautiful houses, but they did become dilapidated slums, and a lot of the murders took place around these Huguenot houses. They were like shit houses, and now they're worth millions.
Then in the 1880s, Tsar, I want to say Nicholas, or is it Alexander?
It's the second.
One of them gets assassinated in Russia, and then this sets off a wave of pogroms, which is essentially like riots, anti-Jewish riots.
Yes, in like 1905.
No, well, there's a civil war riots. This is earlier than that. Yeah, Tsar Alexander II of Russia assassinated by anarchists.
But pogroms are happening consistently.
Yeah, I mean, you could drop a pin in history. There's a Jewish pogrom.
Something bad's happened. Should we go on another massacre of the Jews?
Yeah, it'll be their fault. Let's clear them out of here. But there's a settlement of the Pale, which is Russia had moved into this is sort of post-Crimean War. Russia had moved into Eastern Europe, claiming that territory. There's a lot of Jewish people there, Ashkenazi Jews, that had moved there after the Crusades.
Yeah.
So they then kick off after the Tsar's assassinated. Ashkenazi Jews, a lot of them go America, South Africa, but then a lot of them get to England hoping to get to America, and then they can't afford to, and it's too smelly, and they go, fuck it, we'll just stay here. Yeah. So they arrive in the East End, and there's that thing, as I said, about settling where you arrive. So you've got Jews, you've got Irish, a lot of Irish in the East End.
Nearly everyone is homeless in the East End. So it's crammed in, 80,000 people crammed into fucking 10 streets pretty much in Whitechapel. It's and so a lot of drunk homeless people, and it's like, just think about what happens if a woman, divorces her husband or something and is 50, can't find another person. She will just become a homeless person in East London. Like, what else do you have to do apart from just,
be a prostitute?
Yeah. There's nothing else as an option. And so the options to stay, where to stay if you're a homeless person, you have kind of like 3 tiers of places you could shelters almost.
Yeah.
There's the Doss House, which was for 4p, which was just like an incredibly smelly bed.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just a big dorm room, but
stinky bed.
But they don't change the sheets, so it's piss, blood, cum all over the sheets.
Yeah.
That's 4p. 3p would be the coffin beds. Can you get a picture of coffin beds up, please?
This is like a racing car bed for a kid.
So legit, So you'd all sleep in coffins, and often they'd put the lids on the coffins. Yeah. Because there would be no roof.
Someone was snoring.
But there'd be a hole in the roof, so you'd.
Oh right, okay.
So you're literally in a coffin being rained on.
Wow.
Even though I think I wouldn't. It doesn't look too uncomfortable.
And that's a Salvation Army shelter. Yeah. It's just sleeping in a coffin.
Which is where their headquarters was in the East. It's still in the East End of London, I think. And then my favourite for 2p is the rope. I think it's a hang rope. Yeah. So this is often for drunk people, but it's the cheapest shelters you could get. If you really couldn't find anywhere else, you would just have a long rope, and then often your family, would just lie on the rope, just sort of lean on it. I mean, I don't really understand. Yeah. Like, I've had some bad night's sleep. Yeah. I've been in some uncomfortable beds. But, sometimes if you're at a friend's sleepover and then you're one of the last people to get a bed, you end up sleeping in some weird places. You sleep on the floor, you sleep between sofa cushions. But I've never slept standing up, leaning on a rope. Yeah.
And bear in mind, this person will be sleeping on a rope and then they will go into a brutal 12-hour factory shift. Pissing on leather or something. Or making
or if they're lucky. If they're lucky.
So basically, Whitechapel, Spitalfields, the East End.
Well, this is where the term hangover comes from.
Oh, really? Because you're hanging over the rope.
Yeah, because people were so... This was mainly for pissed up homeless people.
But bear in mind, everyone is fucking battered.
Everyone's battered.
Everyone's pissed.
Because every time you have money, you spend it on alcohol because there's no hope.
This is what I like about the Victorian ways of classifying people. Yeah. If you're poor, you're pissed, drunk, violent, and you're immoral. Yeah. Just for being poor. If you're a woman who's not married, you must be a prostitute. It's just like, it's very binary. It's an autistic classifying of people. There's even maps. I watched a documentary that had a map of the East End, and people had coloured in the streets based on a key of... working class, i.e. Violent, drunk, immoral. Right. Red, nice street, good people. They work it. They classify, because this is the age of sort of Darwin and classifying species.
Records, archives.
Yeah. The whole spicy race stuff is starting to start here. Don't worry, we'll get to that. Don't worry. That's my mastermind topick.
What, phrenology?
Phrenology, the study of skulls.
And we will, on Patreon, be doing a live phrenology test ourselves.
All 3 of us. We're going to see who's the most Neanderthal. We're going to class the production team by the size of skull. I already know where her ratio is going to be. Smallest head wins, I think. Anyway.
Yeah, I think
so, this is the start of classifying people by class. Class is sort of never really... this is the beginning of the peak of the British class system, in that the social mobility is bad.
Yeah, but when you say that, it's the peak of the class system we know and love today.
Yeah.
But before then it was the feudal system.
Yeah.
So I guess it's the modern class. Yeah. Well, because before there was 2 classes, was there not?
Yeah.
It was sort of, you're a peasant or you're a nobleman, really.
Yeah.
So now that there's the birth of the middle class.
In that day, all women were prostitutes. You either prostitute or not, male or female.
Right.
Now, in the Victorian era...
So this class system has actually started fragmenting a bit, where there's more...
Because now you get to nowadays, and it's not even a prostitute, it's a sex worker. Yeah. And it's just, I've got no grip on reality. Yeah. I'm dizzy.
So do you know the campaign Stop Online Hate that they have advertised in between
I'm aware
football
of it,
games? Yeah. So this is not that kind of...
I don't like a lot of our stuff. They keep messaging me.
We've come a long way.
Basically, the East End, very smelly, very cramped, factories, everyone is drunk, everyone's pissed. There is kind of bubbling away anti-Semitic sentiment because the Jews are...
Because it's a period in human history.
Because everyone's alive. And so there's some Jews there and they go, that's a bit annoying. They're doing all right. But also the Jews are doing well in a time when the British people, the economy's through the floor.
I mean, they do so well that they leave the East End.
Yes,
there's not really much Jewish communities.
No, they all go north.
They're all in North London now.
Yeah, but there's also, because people flee there from the pogroms, they go there because there is like a Jewish soup kitchen, there's a Jewish tailors, there's trade established. They stick to their own. The British people don't like that. Yeah. They're not integrating, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then they integrate in the north, and then all these...
As opposed to Jews run the media, it's Jews run the soup kitchens.
Yeah.
It's the same sort of idea.
And see how well they've done over 100 years. They'd stitched up the soup kitchens and now they run everything. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. So the East End is smelly, basically. It's smelly, it's full of immigrants.
Yeah.
And those things aren't related, I must stress. Correlation is not causation.
Yeah.
And this is the scene with which Jack the Ripper enters.
Yeah.
But it must also be stressed, there are murders all the time in East End London.
But it's building up because the slum is getting more and more crowded every year.
When you say slum, like there are slums.
Yeah.
It's not like slum.
Yeah, sorry, no, it's an actual slum.
The whole thing is classed as a slum.
Yeah.
And there's a thing called slumming,
yeah,
where rich people from the West, as a kind of like a fun escape room, will go to the East and like, oh, it's smelly here, isn't it? And try and get out, and then they get out, and it's
really,
like, yeah. There's a whole kind of internal London-centric voyeurism and tourism to how bad the East End is.
And I live there.
And you live there, yeah. Well, now that's just become gentrification, isn't it? Yeah. It's cool to live somewhere smelly, and there's graffiti, and
I think the word slum probably was invented around this time to talk about the East End. It could easily be one of the first.
East End's bracket slum.
Yeah,
yeah. So we should also probably talk about the police force.
Yes,
because the police force is a new concept. 1829, Robert Peel builds the police, invents the police. Before that, there were things called night watchmen, who were just basically like a local councillor who'd walk the streets, and he was only trying to stop an active crime.
Yeah,
there was no sense of like prevention or investigation afterwards.
Yeah,
it was like an eclipse, basically. If you walk past a murder, you'd be like, stop that, and that was his job.
Right.
But quite a lot of the time, they were pissed.
Yeah.
So they weren't doing anything.
Okay, so this is when you're opening up an organised police force.
An organised police force has been around for 50 years at this point. The Metropolitan Police, people don't like them.
But it is interesting that this is literally the cutting edge of civilization is London at this time. Yeah. All these things are new. Yeah. They've never been done before. And it's people covered in shit still.
Yeah, everyone's covered in shit. And the police are...
It is funny that, I don't know, like Britain's period as the global centre, it's still like... The main history is like how awful it was to live there.
Yes,
it's quite, like you don't do that when you're talking about the Romans, do you? Or like the top or the ancient Greece. It's not like.
But if you think we live in the kind of age of the American Empire or the kind of
I guess the drug crisis,
you
fentanyl,
look at like Baltimore and fentanyl. Yeah. That's basically it's because they're expending money abroad. They're not spending it in their own. There's more points about the Great Stink. It's a combination of untreated human waste.
Primarily human excrement from overflowing sewers mixed with animal carcasses, industrial waste, and other debris dumped to the Thames. But, a lot of this, a lot of this stuff they had to work out, as I keep saying.
Yes.
You have to work out that if you shit in the river that runs through your city and throw all of your animal waste, it's not going to smell great.
And, we worked this out in the 1860s. Greece, yet to solve that equation. Greece are yet to solve that problem. The Great Stink, or as it's also known, the country of Greece.
There's not one episode they haven't caught strays. The Greece.
Well, it could be France, couldn't it? The Great Stink.
Yeah.
France or Greece. So the police are a new thing. They're also I found this very funny. The police have a quote difficult relationship with prostitutes, which, as we've discussed, is any woman who's not married. Part of the reason the prostitutes don't like them is that half of them are not prostitutes.
Right.
And they keep being
don't
classified
like being called prostitutes
just because they haven't married their boyfriend. And if they get picked up at night drunk, you're a prostitute, you're going in. There was a thing called the Great Diseases Act, where basically everyone had venereal disease. in the East End, and because there was, everyone was a prostitute, I guess.
Yeah.
So the police then, under public health grounds, started arresting prostitutes and actual sex workers, and they'd be taken to a doctor and then tested for VD, venereal disease. And if they had venereal disease, they were then jailed for a year. Yeah. So, if you were caught with an STD in London in the 1870s, you were banged up.
Wow, yeah, it really is all different now, isn't it? Like, because now you go STD clinic and it's all trying to be sex
you
positive.
You wear a ribbon or whatever. I don't really understand.
But then, literally, you go to STD clinic and you might be thrown in jail.
Yeah, yeah. But also,
for being a slag.
If you go to jail for being a slag, that's better than where you live.
Yeah, which is brilliant.
Which is a pissy bed or a rope. So you're like, well, at least it's a fucking bed. At least I'm not hanging on a rope. So yeah, I'll get VD.
Yeah.
So there's also in the 18 just before the Jack the Ripper murders.
Yeah.
The police get rid of their commissioner, and they bring in a new guy called Sir Charles Warren, who's an Empire man. Right. And you're like this. He was tasked. Do you know this?
Very dangerous.
He was tasked with, in his previous career, finding out proving the Bible was real.
Okay.
So he was sent to Jerusalem on something called the Palestine Expeditionary League, I think. Yeah. And he was basically tasked with finding ancient Jerusalem and the old city walls and stuff. Okay. No one had done that yet. Because they've all been Turks just selling rugs and shit. And yeah. He decided to dig under the city, and he found the ancient irrigation systems and the old city walls.
So it's all the places from the Bible. He was trying to say that
he was basically found the biblical Jerusalem.
Fine. Okay, nice.
So yeah, in the late 18th century, historians estimate more than 1 in 5 Londoners contracted syphilis by 35.
Yeah.
That number has only risen in time.
So did they have any contraception as well? Like, if you're a sex worker, pissed, getting fucked all the time.
Yeah.
Like, how do you stop just having kids all the time?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I guess
don't know what the thing is.
I guess contraception is the fact that you have the kid, but the kid dies immediately. So it's like after the fact, isn't it? The morning after pill was the morning after the birth. Because I think
or you get a rolling pin.
Because in the East End, I think there's a lot. Basically,
yeah, you use fish intestine condoms,
right? Yeah, because it's pretty smelly, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's the other reason that it's smelly, is that people are using fucking fish innards to fuck with each other.
And on this tour, I was asking about how like it would go down. These basically homeless prostitutes, how they have a room to have like there was not really brothels. Yeah. Instead, it was all pitch black, by the way. Right. So there's a couple of gas lamps, but they're often broken. People wouldn't take care of them. These really tight alleyways. It was at night, you couldn't see a fucking thing.
So you're basically like a dog. You're being guided by your smell.
Yeah, and you're just hearing
yeah. But that's the other funny thing.
People chucking the shit out the windows.
And then, but the other funny thing is that people would shout, murder! Yeah. Like, it's so melodramatic.
Yeah.
There would be a little boy.
Well, there's Cockney East End rhyming slang. There is always a jauntiness to all these stories. Yeah, you might be covered in shit, but you've got a top out.
We're poor, but we're happy.
We're happy.
There's a lot of singing, actually.
We're a Londoner.
Yeah.
But like, what would happen if you got a prostitute? Basically, you go down to a dark square or alleyway, pitch black, and then you just shag against the wall.
But again, it's completely pitch black, so you've got no idea. You might actually just be fucking the inside of a fish.
Doesn't matter. Well, you go like, do you want to go? You'd pay 2p. You go down an alleyway, you put a fish intestines on your cock, and you just shag anyone. It could be anyone.
To be fair, I'm imagining the inside of a fish to feel quite nice. So I'm imagining people are just fucking fish in streets. And thinking that's contraception.
Yeah.
But so the police, what I was saying, this guy Charles Warren takes over the police force because the previous guy had been fucking it somehow. Right. You know. Basically, Empire man, he'd found ancient Jerusalem, blah blah blah. He comes into London, and bear in mind, people are being murdered a lot. There's a lot of murder, particularly in the East End. Everyone's drunk. There's prostitution. There's murder. His first thing is, a lot of dogs not on Leeds. There's a lot of fucking dogs not on Leeds around here. Yeah, because there's lots of unsafe dogs, right? So he basically starts a state-sanctioned war on dogs. Right.
And similar to like the Miles War on Sparrows, right?
Basically. And so there are people being murdered that's being reported in the press, And he's like, well, fuck all that. We've got to get these dogs on leads.
We've got to get them on leads.
So much like a woman who wasn't married was a prostitute, a dog that wasn't on a lead was a dangerous dog.
So they just kill dogs?
They basically sent squadrons of police forces with truncheons to beat up dogs. And a dog got beaten to death, and there was like outcry because it was just like a schnauzer or something.
Yeah.
And Warren said, if it's not on a lead, it's a dangerous dog. If you're a woman and you're not married, you're a prostitute. If you're not on a lead, you're a dangerous dog. You know, it's really sorting everything into... So hang on, this is other methods of contraception that Charlie's brought up.
Yeah.
Charlie's on a satellite delay from what we're talking about. Vaginal douches, sponges soaked in oil, vinegar, lemon juice, or cedar oil. Oral contraceptives, including Queen Anne's lace seeds. Lead.
Right.
Well, that is a form of contraception.
Because you'll die.
You're just killing yourself, aren't you?
You're poisoning your womb.
Yeah. What birth control are you on? Oh, I kill myself after I have sex. That's what I do.
I'm drinking mercury actually at the moment to make sure that I don't see the next year. Wait, withdrawal, which required a performance from the husband. Is that just pulling out? Is that?
That's
I don't know why AI is being so cute with it though.
The pulling out.
Performance from the husband. All right, yeah, he's pulling out and jizzing on the street.
Well, I guess you can be quite sort of flamboyant with it, can't you? Ha ha! I mean, in our heads...
Because I'm a Londoner.
Yeah, I'm poor, but I'm actually spraying jizz. Quite a Dickensian flourish at the end of it.
What's the Cockney rhyming sound of cum? Is it like, big old Prince's tum-tum? Or like...
I've got a load of Prince's tum-tum on my shoes. But I imagine the handkerchief was also a cum rag in these days.
I guess so.
Do you reckon it was left pocket cum rag, right pocket snot?
Yes.
Yeah. Something like that.
To be honest, I think they're past the point of distinguishing at this point.
In the East End,
they had bigger fish to fry.
They had bigger fish to fuck. That's
they had bigger
fish to fuck.
But by the way, so there is a lot of murders in the East End, but they open up the Whitechapel murder inquiry, which
before the first Ripper killing.
The first Ripper case,
right?
But potentially a lot of these earlier ones are Ripper as well. They're just not in the canonical 5.
Yeah, no. So when people talk about the canonical, I don't understand why the word canonical is used so much.
It's because think about the kind of people who are into it,
right?
Right?
Yeah. Okay. Dweebs.
Because the glasses is there.
Yeah.
You're going to say canonical.
Yeah, that is. You're right. You're right. She's actually the third member of the canonical 5.
An unwedgied nerd will say canonical twice a day.
Yes, you're right. Actually, did you wedgie your tour guide?
Yeah, I had to at the end. Yeah. He asked for a tip, and I wedged him.
As a member of this podcast, you need to any tour guides you go on as research, the guide needs to be wedged at the end of it.
But it was a good tour, so I was apologising to him. I said I have to do this, but I don't feel good about this.
Please turn around. And that's actually another way that Victorians went to sleep in the East End. Just being hung by their wedgie. If you were really poor, it was just 50 pence, and you'd just be hung up by the back of your pants like that if you were really pissed. So we should get to the first murder, really. So, but the Whitechapel murder inquiry was open like in 1887, so a year before the murders. Because there are a lot of murders in Whitechapel.
Yeah, but it's building. So it's not like it's this complete bloodbath the whole time. It's like the slum is growing so much every year. We're really hitting the zenith. Yeah. And it's just too many people living on top of each other. Now the murders are really kicking into gear.
Right, I see.
So they open up an inquiry. There's lots of murders. There's some that could possibly Jack the Ripper. There was this one woman who was like, she had a fucking rolling pin up her vagina, been beaten to death.
But like Kinger from Big Brother.
Yeah, exactly. And then on her hospital bed, she said it was like 2 or 3 guys. And basically, the canonical 5 are 5 murders that took place over the period of like 2-3 months, right?
Autumn 1888.
Yeah, 1888. And they all have the same sort of style.
Yeah.
Which is...
wounds.
A throat slit all the way back to the bone.
Yeah.
And then creative... use of organs.
Yeah, there's a sort of, I guess, a knife point signature.
Yes, exactly. So a lot of them could be Ripper, but he's got his own calling card. Yeah.
But
he gets cute with it.
There's a generally established 5 victims, and then there's so many other women that are being killed just sort of around the time. Yeah. That there's a kind of, you can...
But he's got his trademarks, that's not a Ripper killing. You're looking at a woman who's got like been beaten to death by a frying pan. It's like, that's not Ripper.
Who cares? So the first murder happens, I think, on August the 31st.
This is Mary Ann Polly Nichols, who was a prostitute whose nickname was Nichols.
I can see a man in a top hat commenting, Nichols! I can see that happening.
Her nickname was Pretty Polly. but I think that might have been sarcastic. She was
that's after she was found.
I think she was like a 50-year-old prostitute, right?
I don't know how old she was actually.
So they're all in their 40s actually.
Right. So she, August 31st, bank holiday.
Yeah.
August bank holiday. We've all got a bit out of hand on a bank holiday. Mary Ann Nichols was found murdered at 3:40 a.m.
on Bucks Road, now Dorwood Street. Dorwood Street, which I used to get to Whitechapel to come to this podcast today. It's a temporary entrance to Whitechapel at the moment where you go around the back. I literally passed where she...
So this is around the back of the tube?
Yeah.
Right.
Like literally today. So I literally stepped over where her body would have been to get here.
Wow. And you didn't do anything?
What stop it?
Yeah.
It's too late, Finn.
There's a Japanese woman still on the loose, Horatio. On the streets of London.
Yeah. So on the Ripper tour...
Is the tube open at this point in 19th century? When did the tube open?
The tube is open, yeah.
In 19th
I don't know if the
London?
Whitechapel station is, because it's opened in the 1860s. So all of these things, yeah. And at this point, they're using steam.
Underground?
Yeah.
Steam?
Well, but it's sort of like the District and Circle line, so there are open parts to it.
Yeah.
So it's not really like the tube. Yeah.
Christ, must have really...
Yeah.
I mean, if you get...
it's coal. It could be...
fucking hell.
Yeah. So it's one of those ones.
Underground?
Yeah.
God.
But all of this stuff is starting at this point.
Can you get a bit of a bio up against Mary Ann Nichols?
Against Mary Ann Nichols?
Sorry. Get a bio up for...
She's a whore!
The argument against... If we get in defence of Jack the Ripper, what's Mary Ann Nichols done to deserve this?
I'm married at 40.
I'm married at 40, so obviously Ripper's gone. I'm here to clean up the streets. It's sort of a taxi driver element, isn't it?
Yeah.
Ripper's kind of... I imagine before he goes out and kills her, he's staring in the mirror.
You're saying there's sort of incel vibes to Jack the Ripper.
You're talking to me? Are you talking to me?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Are you talking to me?
Are you talking to me? So, Mary Ann Nichols, Polly, first murder, bank holiday, 1888.
She was last seen, so this was on the Ripper tour, is on the Brick Lane.
Yeah.
There's a pub called the Frying Pan. It's now like one of those cheap noodle places, like a shitty, it's called like Oodles or something.
Oodles of noodles.
Yeah, one of those ones.
Yeah.
But you can still, and I'll put a photo up, you can still look at the top of the building and there's the old emblem of the frying pans. She was an absolute pisshead, right?
Mary Ann?
Yeah. Loved a drink.
Wreckhead.
Absolutely loved a drink. And I think her husband left her because she was such a drunk.
Right. So she basically, if you were an alcoholic, divorcee, you would just return to sex work.
Yeah.
In the Victorian time,
you'd struggle to have a bottomless brunch in these days because it was dangerous to be a woman that pissed.
Yes. Well,
because now, girls, bottomless brunch, Prosecco, they feel very free of not getting ripped to shreds.
Bottomless brunch is what Jack the Ripper called his spree. Because he was cutting the bottoms off 5 women.
Off ladies who brunch.
So the main pattern is that these are all ladies who brunch.
Yeah.
These are all Yas queens. Yeah. They're all kind of like...
well-behaved women don't make history.
Well, clearly. They don't live long enough. So Mary Ann Nichols is having some Prosecco and some poached egg. It's, I'll be out all day. She said that to her husband. And he's thinking, thank fuck for that. You and your girlfriends are going to go and
but she was just loud,
and
loved gin, shouting outside the Frying Pan pub. And the last time she was seen was walking away with a bloke away from that pub. And then she was found later, a couple streets over.
Yep. Throat
cut
slash. To shit. Now there are
small intestines on her shoulder.
Is that happen yet?
Or maybe that's the second one.
But basically, my understanding is that as the murders pile up, every time there's kind of a more like performance art piece to the body.
Apart from the third one, but we'll get into that.
Yeah, throat slit. I mean, there are photos. These are the first crime scene kind of photos, right?
Yes, but this is not the first crime scene photos. These are photos in the morgue.
Right, okay.
But at the end, we had the first crime scene photo, which is still, even for modern standards, completely fucked.
Bad. Yep, it's pretty bad.
Well, I guess part of what makes Ripper so fascinating for true crime people is just the brutality of the murders. It's like, even with like the golden age of serial killers in the 70s, he does kind of hold up against some of them. He holds up against Dahmer and all that lot. Like, the stuff he was doing is still, by today's standards,
it's pretty grim, really.
Pretty brutal.
Yeah. It's knife, right?
Yeah, there we go. That photo, the second one.
So the photo of it's kind of like, I mean,
yeah, because
you can't really get a sense of how fucked up she is.
Apart from the last one, most of them are a little disappointing.
Yeah,
because they all look kind of quite serenely asleep.
Yeah.
You know?
They look like my father-in-law on Christmas Day at about 4 o'clock. Kind of, just sort of drooling, pissed, full. To be honest, that could have been any day that she left the pub.
Yes. Exactly, yeah.
On a rope, just a bit, bit full. She had too many pork scratches.
Yeah, it feels like, girls can't have fun anymore. It was sort of like the feeling, Could a girl not have a drink, without getting her head chopped off?
Well, no, they can't in 1888 because, as I've said, she's a prostitute. Yes.
It was hard to have a laugh as a woman back then, because if you were, it was like you were really running risk of getting chopped up.
Yeah, I mean, now, people are like, oh, take care on the way home. Yeah. Back then, they're like, fucking good luck, mate. I'll say bye now. Yeah. I'll say bye for good.
Because there's just no lights as well. You're just walking down an alleyway.
There's no lights, and there's no police. The policemen are pissed themselves. And also...
And they don't care.
They don't care because they think you're a prostitute. They think, well, I'm probably going to bang her up. Because, and then they would also, I forgot to say this earlier, they would also take sexual bribes to keep them on the street. So if they found you with a venereal disease and they wanted to fuck you, they basically were like, well, if you suck me off, I won't arrest you.
Well, they'd suck them off and then be like, you're arrested for prostitution. That's disgusting.
You're disgusting. And she's like, oh! I got you. I've got you good. Yeah.
This is a sting operation.
I mean, the Met's relationship to women hasn't really got any better.
No.
150 years since. This is the beginning of all those WhatsApp chats that are in the news now. So, basically, if you're a drunk woman in Brick Lane in 1888, I mean, your best hope is a lock-in.
Right.
Stay in the pub until it's dawn.
Yes.
And then make a run for it.
Yeah.
But then you bear in mind you're going back into a 15-hour shift at a match factory. Mm-hmm. It's pretty fucking grim.
So Mary Nichols was found by Charles Allen Lechmere, a carman, at around 3:40 a.m. in Whitechapel. Lechmere was walking to his job in Broadsea. Yeah, he was like a cabbie basically, when he found her lying on the ground in front of a gated stable entrance. Lechmere and Robert Paul, who was walking behind Lechmere, noticed Lechmere standing over the woman. Right, yeah.
Is there any actually photos of Jack the Ripper?
What? Well, no, because no one knows who he is.
We don't know who he is.
I reckon that would have cracked the case if there was a fucking photo of him.
Right, that's the producer of our history podcast.
I thought they knew. I didn't know they knew.
No, yeah, that's kind of the big thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you got away with it?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. That's our producer. Who 50 minutes into Jack the Ripper going, what, they don't have a photo of him? So, Mary Ann Nichols, first victim, found by a carman, a cabbie, taxi guy, around 3:40 a.m.
It was apparently the cut was very fresh when he found her, so it was pretty soon after she died that he found her.
Yeah, which is suspicious.
And it's happening quite a lot with a lot of these. It was like often like an hour, sometimes arguably maybe even 5 minutes, one of them, after she died.
Someone's fucking a fish around the corner and then walks by and goes,
because it's kind of amazing he managed to get away with all of them.
Yeah.
Especially when it was the biggest news story.
Or she.
Girl bosses can do it too.
So Ann Nichols has been at an all-day brunch.
Yeah.
She's come round the corner.
Yeah.
Some absolute mad cunt has disemboweled her. And
hit
then
her for 6.
He's absolutely knocked her for 6. The next morning, they're like, you had a lot last night, didn't you? Fuck me, Marianne.
And then I don't know with the news, because I guess it was already building with the Whitechapel murders, so there's already a lot of stuff about the crime.
What we'll do in the next episode is talk about the press, I think, before we get back into it. But what would have happened is that the taxi man will have gone, murder, like that. Murder! In London! Would have done that.
I don't care.
Shut up! I'm trying to get to sleep on this rope. So he would have shouted murder. A policeman arrived. A policeman had been loshed off by one of the prostitute protection racket.
Hang on, can you not interrupt me?
Yeah.
I was with this awful prostitute. I'm going to send to jail immediately afterwards.
What I found interesting was that crime writers like Conan Doyle actually knew more because they were more intelligent than police officers. I think one of the police officers in the Ripper case, I don't know if he's hit on the beat yet, is genuinely called William Thick. Right? That's how fucking. That's how uphill the police force had it. Was it the quick get thick on it? So Thick just thinks she's asleep, right? She walks in and just thinks this woman's tripped over and fallen and hit her head or something. She's a complete thicker. And
We've got Thick on the case.
Don't worry, Thick's on the case. He walks into a wall and trips over or something, knocks himself out. Yeah. He finds Ann Nichols.
God, that's a bad hangover. He says,
"Bloody hell, she's had a lot to drink." Many prostitutes around here. I feel quite horny. And then what would have happened is that there's the police would have, the newspapers would have picked up on it.
Yeah.
And the next morning there'd be a little boy, like urchin.
Yeah. Read all about it.
Murder in the streets of Whitechapel. Murder. And then we'll talk about the newspapers in the next episode. But this begins to start, and it really gets going after the second murder. Which we'll get to the second murder in part 2. And
which, if you listen to this, will be all available on Patreon now. If you can't wait.
Along with probably a part 3 about the suspects.
Yes.
So all those episodes are up now on the Patreon. For £3 a month, you can
not bad.
become a truther. Yeah. There's also...
For threepence.
Just threepence.
For threepence, me lord. Just pay a threepence
and
for a Patreon.
There's 3 tiers. There's men, there's married women, and there's prostitutes. Those are the different categories of...
if you pay £3 a month, you are a prostitute.
You're a prostitute.
We're grateful, but you will be sent to jail.
And if you have venereal disease, you will be banned from the Patreon. This is a clean ship we're running. You'll be banged up. But there's not just weekly bonus episodes. There's a whole, there's our Rise of the Nazis series. There's our very ignorant, even by our standards, series on the Middle East. Yeah. That's all there on the Patreon. But
an incredibly ignorant community is forming as well.
Yeah, real thickos there. Under every episode going, I learned nothing.
If you want to be part of one of the worst communities in London, in the world, then please join our Patreon.
Don't meet up. You won't be safe. None of you will be safe. One of them's Jack the Ripper, I'm sure of it. Anyway, either way, thanks so much for listening, and we will see you for part 2 next time.
Goodbye.